Everyone, today is Monday, December 4th. We are convening to go into an open session to vote on a motion to go in closed session pursuant to Section 3305B10 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss public security after determining that the public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public security. The topic is Rockville City Police and Emergency Preparedness, and this is meeting number 34-23. I want to confirm that that is the focus of the meeting.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would invite Chief Brito to confirm for the Mayor and Council that the information in a closed session is sensitive and relates to Homeland Security and the city's emergency preparation such that it constitutes a risk to public safety and security if not done in public.
Thank you, Mr. Cimino. Thank you, Chief. I will now entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, December 4th, and I call to order meeting number 3423. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Apologies for the later start. We had a briefing before this session that went a little bit over. I also want to acknowledge that since we last met, this is our second meeting of this new mayor and council. There was a funeral for First Lady Rosalind Carter, as well as on Saturday we recognized Senator Forehand, and a memorial was planned by Senator Kagan as well as Commissioner Barbe. Thank you for that, and thank you for including the city of Rockville. We appreciate it. We will now move to agenda item 3, agenda review. Madam Clerk, do we have any changes?
Madam Mayor and council members, the city manager's report will not be this Monday. It'll be on the 18th. And also on our calendar, you have agenda item 13, review and comment action report. You will not see that item appear going forward. So there is no action report to report. Thank you.
Welcome changes. We'll make up some time.
Yes.
All right, we have a certificate of recognition as part of agenda item 5, as well as a proclamation. I ask my colleagues to move to the podium.
Now? All right. So the Rockville chorus, please come up. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
All right. So a certificate of recognition to the Rockville chorus. The Mayor and Council of Rockville, Maryland congratulates the Rockville Chorus for receiving the Maryland Recreation and Parks Association's Community Organization Award. The association recognizes and thanks the chorus members, director, and accompanist for their outstanding contributions to the Rockville community and for enriching the lives of our residents. So, do you guys want to say a few words?
Liddy Gerritsen, director of the chorus. Thank you so much. I just want to honor Betty Wisda, who has served the chorus for many, many, many years, and we are just delighted to have her support. And I also want to invite you all to our concert on the 17th at F. Scott Fitzgerald. And if you want to come further down, we're singing on the stage at the Kennedy Center for the Messiah Sing-Along. So if you've never done that on the 23rd down at the Kennedy Center, it's a lot of fun, and we'll be up on stage there.
And I'm Cindy Fullerton, president of Rockville Chorus, and I definitely echo Linda, Betty, thank you for your advocacy and your ardent support of the arts and Rockville Chorus. Thank you so much.
And do you want to show this? Sure. I do want to see the beautiful. Here. Betty, you want to? Sure, sure. There you go.
Alrighty. Before I call it the Human Rights Commission, I just want to say that the recognition of the Rockville Chorus is long overdue. One of the things growing up, my grandparents sung in the choir, traveling choir, so holidays weren't the holidays without the Handel's Messiah. So I'm super excited that y'all will be there. My grandfather's no longer with me, but glad that y'all will be there. As a representative, and if Mr. Tyree Davis, if you can come up for Human Rights Commission.
We have members from other commissions.
Awesome. I serve as liaison to this commission. I've learned so much. Very proud to be a part, and then inspired and motivated by the work that they do. I don't know if I'll continue to serve. I can't remember what y'all decided to do ultimately, but no, I'm just saying. I think it's great. I think, as I mentioned to my colleagues, serving on a board and commission gives you a special glimpse, a special view of the city. I'm happy to serve in any capacity, and it's been a pleasure serving with you all. And I want to read the proclamation, and it is as follows. Whereas December 10th marks the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and whereas the Declaration establishes multiple rights such as freedom, equal dignity, peace, and the overall worth of every human being, and whereas maintaining fundamental human rights is the basis of a democratic society, and whereas the theme for 2023 is freedom, equality, and justice for all. And whereas the Human Rights Commission, appointed by the Mayor and Council, is charged with improving human rights for the Rockville community, promoting appreciation and understanding of diversity. And whereas Rockville's Human Rights Commission fulfills these responsibilities by sponsoring programs like the city's annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration and the Rockville Pride program, engaging young people by holding diversity and inclusion training and conducting voter registration. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council, the City of Rockville, Maryland, do hereby proclaim December 10th, 2023 as Human Rights Day in Rockville, and encourage Rockville residents to appreciate the importance of human rights, both locally and globally, to educate themselves on human rights issues, and to advocate for those whose rights are violated. With that, Madam Mayor, I move the proclamation.
Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
On behalf of the Human Rights Commission of the City of Rockville, we graciously accept this proclamation from the Mayor and Council. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we are grateful to live in a city that strives to protect the inalienable human rights of all its residents. This day is an important celebration of all the progress we've made to uphold the dignity and safety of all people, and a meaningful reminder of the work ongoing and ahead. We look forward to working with the city in 2024 to determine Rockville's potential for participation in one or more of the three following international city-based programs supported by the United Nations: Human Rights Cities, Cities for CEDAW, and Child-Friendly Cities. Thank you again.
Yes. Should I kneel down?
Choreography. Thank you. Before we go to community forum, thank you for the wonderful recognitions and for the folks who came out. I will take a point of privilege to recognize former Councilmember Beryl Feinberg. It's great to see you here, as well as Senator Kagan. All right. We will now move to community forum. This is a time where we'll take time to listen to our community. You will have 3 minutes. First, I'd like to call Jack Sobel. Is Jack Sobel here? You're welcome to come to the podium. Do you want to speak? You don't have to. That person is no longer speaking. You're welcome. You're okay. Great, thank you. Next, Beryl Feinberg. Someone is welcome to come up. Come say hello. I know you're not shy.
It's wonderful to see you all in the expanded body. So congratulations again on your recent elections and your November 19th swearing in as Rockville's mayor and council. I wish you individual and collective successes as you debate policies, implementation of multiple master plans and the enormous 2040 plan, and review the city manager's recommended FY25 operating and CIP budgets. It's a lot to deal with, and I truly, truly wish you the best in doing that. I'm not here to debate foreign policy this evening. What I am here is to ask that the mayor and council, as well as staff, defer any actions this evening on any Human Rights Commission proclamation that had been submitted to you. I want to speak on 3 items very briefly. The lack of HRC authority to present a resolution for mayor and council adoption. This evening, I had heard that the HRC was proposing Resolution 2023.1. While well-intentioned, it oversteps its charter in Chapter 11. I do not see it anywhere that this group is empowered to present to the mayor and council a resolution for adoption. The authorizing and approving body is you, the mayor and council, not the HRC. Should this mayor and council wish to go further than the 2 resolutions already passed, I urge you to demonstrate your duly elected leadership. 2. The content of the HRC draft resolution is duplicative in content and spirit of 2 existing resolutions. Resolution 10-21, to endorse and commit to the establishment of government policies and practices that promote racial and ethnic equity and social justice, and that's a quote, which was passed July 12, 2021. Resolution 12-21 is entitled, Hate Has No Place Here. This one specifically and directly calls out the increase in misogynistic, anti-Semitic, especially those belonging to the Jewish faith, Islamophobic, anti-Sikh, anti-Asian, and Pacific Islander, anti-Black, brown rhetoric, harassment, and violence. It continues to say that ideologies based on hate, violence, discord, etc. are to be rejected and condemned, and urge calling attention to these harms and denouncing extremism. The HRC resolution proposed 4 steps that equate October 7th attack with Israel's right to sovereignty and clear political statements. Political agendas must be checked on our doorsteps. Lastly, the previous mayor and council voted 4-1 in October for short-term and medium-term steps to promote religious diversity and healing. Several action items were given as directions to staff. I don't want to go through them as I see the clock and don't want to overstep my permission here. But I ask you, Mayor and Council, we need your leadership as residents are counting on you to ensure timely steps are taken to implement the directions that were passed 4-1 to promote healing. We can have resolutions, but actions speak louder. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Amanda Schwartz.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Schwartz, and I am the chair of the Human Service Advisory Commission. I'm here tonight just to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about our commission. We're a group of volunteers that are composed of folks that are residents within the city limits. We're also consumers of human service within the city, and we're caregivers. We're people who actually deliver those services. Together, we work together to understand what the needs are within the city, and we look to see what services are available. We discuss the most difficult challenges that face our community, and we wrestle with resources available to solve those challenges so that you can create a budget that meets the needs of every constituent that you serve. Because we are tasked to identify what residents need, we're excited for the upcoming needs assessment that was proposed during last term. We can use that information to make informed decisions about distributing funds for the caregiver grants. We, two of our membership, participate in the grant process along with other folks to decide how those monies are spent and make recommendations to you. We also hear every month about what the caregivers are doing. These are organizations that serve folks in the city of Rockville, everything from food and shelter to after-school programs. We also get to go and do site visits and see what they do live and in person. We use all of the information from that and we'll use the needs assessment during our monthly meetings to invite representatives to speak to us about the issues. We've had Congressman Raskin. We've had several folks from Montgomery County and from the city of Rockville talk to us about the needs in the city and how they're working to meet them so that we can come to you and provide information to offer you an intentional strategic approach to planning and budgeting. And so we ask that you let us know if you have questions about what the needs are within the city, and get used to us because we come quite often to deliver our message and to share with you what we're thinking about and what we're hearing. We are also working with other commissions within the city. We do a lot of cross-commission work, and so our work flows beyond just human services. It'll talk about the Youth Commission, the Education Commission, the Senior Commission, all of the other commissions we're in touch with. So please reach out to us. We're around, and we're excited about working with you. So welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Rose.
Good evening. All you welcome. And it was one heck of a vote out there. The whole crowd getting in here was something else. I had a few things to say. Our animal catcher, or as such, our animal veterinarian, is not open 24 hours a day. It's just not. I think there could be a deal made with a veterinarian, either posted from school or one that's teaching another underposted, that they could get an apartment and just transit real quick the little putty cat or dog or beast. I think that's really important here in Rockville. We used to have many, many dogs, We don't see many people anymore with dogs. And posting a veterinarian like that, you got dog tags coming from them, you got the shots, and you have availability and an access even to a 24-hour phone that adapts to wherever they are. I think the best common thing of a veterinarian in my farm in Chicago was, believe it or not, you put a dime in the payphone and you get a nickel back. Anyway, all in all, you could always get a hold of a farmer veterinarian. And I think it's very important for Rockville to have a good 24-hour a day into the evening. I think you also find a cluster of people coming just because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts the list of those who signed up in advance. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in person? Yes. Welcome, Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I join with everyone else who has spoken saying congratulations. It's amazing how you all fit in here so smoothly. I have a lot to say. I'm going to try to talk really fast. First off, thank you, Madam Mayor, and so many of you all for coming to the memorial for Jenny Forehand. She served Rockville for 36 years as a member of the House of Delegates and then the Senate, and was just a super effective voice and leader. And former Delegate Kumar Barve and I were delighted to host an event honoring her, and just want to publicly thank former Congresswoman Connie Morella, former Attorney General Brian Frosch, former State Treasurer Nancy Cobb, former County Executive Ike Leggett, and so many others who came out to share their stories and honor her. And thanks to members of the community. Rockville turned out to honor Jenny. At another time, I'd like to talk about our elections. Thank God we still live in a democracy, but there were a lot of problems. And I have been invited to speak on Thursday. Unfortunately, I am attending a conference on the Eastern Shore and then heading up to Pennsylvania, and so I won't be able to be there then. But while I thank everybody who serves on the Rockville Board of Elections, there were some serious problems in all things, and I really look forward to debriefing on that. There are a lot of people, and I just want to do a 2-second civics lesson. There are people who sometimes ask me, and I always say, I'm Cheryl Kagan, I'm very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, or Rockville and Gaithersburg, and a lot of people will ask me, so what do you do for the other 9 months of the year? And I just want to make sure that folks know that literally I started off my day in Gaithersburg, went to Rockville, then DC, an event in Bethesda, then Rockville, and then this is the everyday reality. As I mentioned, I'm speaking in Cambridge, Maryland, and then doing an energy site visit in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So during the 90-day session, which is what's most visible, we are only in one place. We're in Annapolis, and I am either on the Senate floor, in my committee, or in my office. The other 9 months, I'm out in the community. I'm in not just Gaithersburg and Rockville, my district, but I am at national conferences, I'm in meetings, I'm solving casework challenges, preparing legislation, and attending events all over the country. And so I just want to make sure that folks are aware of that. I'll be working with you all on the legislative bond initiatives and making sure that we can bring home funding for key Rockville priorities. I look forward to working with you on that. And then my legislative agenda, which I fear that I'm not going to be able to have time to come back before the Senate convenes in January. Your predecessors were quite aware. Councilmember Miles and Mayor Ashton are aware. I will continue to work on 911 issues in Carl Henn's memory. I am kind of the queen bee of election law in the Senate as vice chair of the committee that oversees all election laws. I think I had 8 election bills last year. I might have 9 this year. So I do a lot of election stuff. I'm often described as the senator for the nonprofit sector. I will continue to work on nonprofits. And I do consumer protection as well as the voice of cities and counties. I am very proud to be a municipal superstar and will continue to partner with Rockville, with Gaithersburg, and the other 155 cities and towns across Maryland. And with that, I wish you well. I wish you happy holidays. And I look forward to seeing you in Annapolis when you all come down for events. So thank you for a few minutes to say hello.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you all.
We have one speaker who signed up virtually, Chris Robles.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm very excited to be a part of this. And so the reason why I'm here is because I'm a local business, and so I'm looking to expand right now, especially December, January, February is a little bit slower for the food industry, and so I have a food truck that I would like to put in a location here in the city of Rockville. But unfortunately, based on the information that I got from someone here in the city of Rockville, they sent me the application for the hawkers, peddlers, solicitor license, and they're telling me that for food trucks in city of Rockville, you're only allowed to be in one spot for a maximum 1 hour. And so Montgomery County, which is where I'm licensed, you're allowed to have a site specific, meaning you're allowed to like park in one specific location, or you can have a regular route, which is like this license that you guys have where you're moving around. So I would like for you guys to create something so that we can park. Like I'm, looking to lease space from a gas station and park there. Unfortunately, I know it's very time sensitive because it's an issue that I have. I want to be able to still have hours so that I can keep my employees and not have to let go certain employees. But if if this was Montgomery County, I would just apply for the site-specific license. I'm already licensed with Montgomery County, which your application says, it says, I understand that a Montgomery County Health Department permit is required for selling of food and must be submitted with this application, which I have. But the chapter 12, I was reading chapter 12 because chapter 12 laws of Rockville entitled license permits and miscellaneous business regulations. It doesn't state anything there about the 1 hour limitation. So I hope that the information that I got from someone here at City of Rockville was incorrect. So yeah, I don't know if anyone can really help me out. I was told about this meeting, and so I'm like, this is probably the best place where I can get information, because I am trying to act very quick. I do have the location already where I can park. I kind of already went into agreement with the owner of that location. Again, it's in the city of Rockville. And so yeah, I hope you guys can help me.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. I'm going to see if we can follow up with the city manager to get you more information, and thank you for being a part of Community Forum. Thank you to all of our commenters. I did want to just note, since it's in the public comment, that some members of Mayor and Council met with members of the Human Rights Commission, and there has been some clarification. They are not proceeding with their resolution. They know what the proper process is now, and we are working to resolve the issue. So I appreciate the comments as well as the opportunity to clarify, and thank you for coming to meet with us. All right. So next we'll move to agenda item.
Madam Mayor, real quick.
Sure.
Just one question. I know Senator Kagan, you mentioned the memorial service for Senator Forehand. Is there a way that anybody who missed that might be able to see it if it's possible?
Yes, well, a lot of people attended, a lot of people couldn't. If people are on Facebook, it's on my Senator Cheryl Kagan Facebook page, and it's uploaded onto my YouTube channel. So they can watch it in either place, and feel free to share it because there was a lot of love for Jenny at that service. So thank you, Council Member.
Thank you. And I saw it recorded, and thank you for hosting that lovely event. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 8A, Historic District Commission FY23 Annual Report. Do we have a staff presentation to start? Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Sheila Bashiri. And while you're setting up, I'll go ahead and welcome Ms. Anita Powell. Thank you. I'll acknowledge that we have a few other commissioners here, and so I'll say the names of all the commissioners while we're waiting for the presentation to come up. Anita Neal Powell, Seth Denbo, Mercy Shenge, Michael Goldfinger, and Peter Fosselman. Welcome and thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Bashiri. I'm the preservation planner for the city of Rockville. Okay. I'm Sheila Bashiri, preservation planner for the city of Rockville. Like to congratulate everyone, all the new commissioners and commissioners, new council members, Mayor Ashton, council member, it's notes here. Councilmember Miles, I'm just pleased that we, have you all. And I'm a resident, so this is especially good for me. I'm very happy and very proud to say that the Historic District Commission is here today. And also our chair, Anita Neal Powell, will be doing the presentation for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm joined by Commissioners Seth Denbo, Michael Goldfinger, Mercy Shenge, and Vice Chair Peter Fosselman, who is sitting on the front row. And we are also joined by Katie Gerbis, Comprehensive Planning Manager, Christopher Myers, Principal Planner, and Sheila Perzeri, Preservation Planner, who will be sharing the HDC PowerPoint with you and will be available to answer any questions you may have. Tonight I will be providing the Historic District Commission Annual Report, which includes our accomplishments for fixed FY23 and objective for FY24. The responsibility of the Historic District Commission is to review and act on certificate of approval for construction or exterior alteration to historic properties. It is also our responsibility to review and act on the evaluation of significance for the purpose of demolition and to determine if it meets the adopted criteria for historic or cultural significance for historic designation. Finally, we must review and act on historic designation applications to determine if the property meets the criteria for historic or cultural significance. The HDC accomplishment for fiscal year 2023, we conducted 10 HDC meetings. We did not receive any application for one of the 12 months, and we do not meet in August. We reviewed 27 certificates for approval. All were approved. Conducted 4 evaluation of significance, reviewed for the purpose of demolition. None were recommended for historic designation. We conducted 1 courtesy review at the request of an applicant, and we reviewed and recommended 15 Montgomery County tax credit applications for approval. To continue with HDC accomplishments for FY 2023, in a joint partnership with staff on April 20th, we completed and adopted a full revision of the HDC Rules of Procedure. We were able to add for the first time a vice chair position, which is currently being held by Vice Chair Peter Fosselman. HDC received endorsements of the Historic Preservation Work Plan for 2023 to 2033 by the last Mayor and Council. The staff has already started meeting with the working groups, which includes HDC members and partners in the city, county, and state, and will continue to get input as we go through the work plan. HDC and staff have reviewed narrative for Glenview Mansion signage. HDC was awarded the Maryland Heritage Area Authority grant for the Avery Road College Cemetery and Smith Homestead grant penetrating radar survey, a tool that is used as a subsurface detection and for mapping out the area. HDC sponsored a joint Montgomery County and State of Maryland tax credit workshop with Maryland Historical Trust and Montgomery County. The workshop was open to all residents of Rockville. HDC commissioners are required to attend at least 1 training per year. We attended 3 specialized training, presented by Maryland Association of Historic District Commission and National Trust for Historic Preservation 2022 Path Forward Conference. In addition to the specialized training, we also attended 5 other historic preservation meetings with staff. Staff has also served on the board of Maryland Association of Historic District Commission and Maryland Historical Trust. The HDC goals and objective for FY 2024 continue to consider all application requests objectively and fairly and make decisions based on the required standards, guidelines, and adopted criteria. Certificate of approval, the time period is within 45 days. An evaluation of significance, the time period is 210 days. Both time periods are established by state law. We also conducted courtesy reviews for those who would like to have feedback on future projects. Process a greater number of tax credit application as a result of the yearly joint State of Maryland and Montgomery County Tax Credit Workshop, as presented to you in an earlier slide. Continue to implement the Historic Preservation Work Plan. Also mentioned in an earlier slide, work group meetings are underway with our partners. Staff will continue to update historic preservation web pages, install a new sign on Zedixis Z. Thompson in partnership with the organization Civil War Trail. If I said that wrong, I apologize. We have already reviewed the text. Zed Thompson was a black man who was a slave of Othrop Muncaster. He was enlisted as a private in the first U.S. colored troops. Hopefully we will be able to get it installed during FY 2024. We will continue to attend specialized training to keep up with best practices. In conclusion, I want the Mayor and Council to know we have a great staff who works unconditionally with Historic District Commission members. So publicly, the commissioners would like to thank the staff for their wisdom and knowledge that they bring to the historic designation and preservation. I also wanted to share with you that several HDC commissioners' time on HDC have expired and would like to be reappointed, including myself. Hopefully, during your next mayor and council meeting, under the appointment and reappointment of boards and commission, our names will be included. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the Historic District Commission FY 2023 Annual Report, July 2022 to June 2023.
Thank you, Chair Neil Powell. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Thank you. I have a question. So I appreciate that there has been some training and outreach of folks who know how to apply for the tax credits. Do you have plans to do that in the upcoming year? I think that, as we all know, we value historic properties. We also know it's expensive, and so we want to make sure that people know how to take advantage of the incentives to be able to get some reimbursement.
Yes, that's a part of our 2024 goals.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing none. Oh, Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to echo thanks to you and the rest of the Historic District Commission for all that you all do. Ms. Bashiri as well. I know sometimes y'all take heat. I took it with you, but I'll continue to support you in all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work of the Historic District Commission. Thank you, commissioners. And thank you for the excellent work plan. I know you have your work cut out for you, and we'll look forward to hearing the updates.
Thank you very much.
You. We'll also work on those appointments.
Thank you. We would appreciate it.
It's meeting too. We will get there, I promise. Thank you. Now we'll be moving on to agenda item 8B, which is the FY23 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and Independent Auditor Reports. We'll hear from Xiaoxing Zhang, staff presentation. Welcome. And while you get set up, just to give you some transition time, I just want to thank you. The city continues to have a AAA bond rating, fantastic reports. I enjoyed reading both the Poplar annual financial report as well as this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Xiaojing Zhang, and I work as the Director of Accounting for the city within the Finance Department. I'm here tonight to present our fiscal year 2023 audited financial reports. I'm thankful to our accounting division staff and to the professionals at Clifton Larson Allen who helped us to ensure a timely filing of our ACFR to the state of Maryland. Now, to the reports, each of you have been provided with a copy of our fiscal year 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR, from packet number page 19, Internal Control Letter on packet page 145, Governance Letter of Required Communications on packet page number 147, Report on Single Audit on packet page number 157, and fiscal year 2023 Popular Annual Financial Report, PAFR, on packet page number 168. Sean Walker is a certified public accountant and a partner within Clifton Larson Allen, our independent audit firm. He will come forward momentarily to discuss and provide insights on each of the reports. I would first like to provide a few highlights related to the city's financial reports. The city is required to produce basic financial statements annually and to undergo independent financial audit. The city has elected to produce the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, also called as ACFR, which provides more financial data and enhances transparency. Each year that city prepares its ACFR, it is submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for review. A few months ago, the city was notified that it received the 33rd consecutive award for excellence in financial reporting. Obtaining this award means producing ACFR that is thorough in disclosing significant accounting matters and compliant with all reporting and accounting standards. In the FY23 ACFR, the city fulfilled regulatory requirements to implement Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB Statement 96, Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements, SPITA. Staff will submit the FY 2023 ACFR for review and hopes to continue to earn recognition for excellence in financial reporting. Staff is pleased with the outcome of our independent external audit, which came with a clean audit opinion and no noted material weaknesses in internal controls. The FY 2023 ACFR is available on the city website. Our independent auditors work directly for the Mayor and Council, and each of the formal letters, including the audit opinion, are addressed to the Mayor and Council. You are encouraged to take advantage of our auditors while they are here and to ask any questions you might have. At this time, Sean Walker will discuss each report with you. Thanks.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor Ashton and council members. Sean Walker from Clifton Larson Allen. We like to be called CLA these days. But I also want to introduce you to one other person here that's with me. I got Brandon Glover. Brandon is actually the person that sits here and helps get through the audit, doing all the detail work, and he wanted to come to be with you today. So, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be the auditor here at the City of Rockville. And I also want to thank the staff at the City of Rockville, especially the finance staff. They have put a lot of effort in to be able to prepare for an audit and to get us the information we request. It takes a lot of work, and they put a lot of time in there. Stacy, Xiaojing, Kim, and Sharon, most notably. So we were engaged to do the audit of the city's annual comprehensive report, which is the longer document that you have in your possession. And we did also do the audit of the major programs for federal grant programs. We do perform these audits in accordance with special industry-based standards, including the government auditing standards. So the results, as Zhao already told you, is that it is a modified opinion. We got a unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance. I know that sounds negative, but it is actually a very positive thing. We had no findings over the financial statements, internal control findings. We also, in our single audit, which is that federal audit, it's also called the single audit, where we have to audit the major programs of the city. We did audit only one program this year. The program was the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Our audit on that didn't disclose any issues, neither in internal control or in compliance. So we did issue an opinion, an unmodified opinion on that as well. A few things I just want to draw your attention to. In your governance communication you have in front of you, it's a letter. Just to let you know that the accounting policies of the city are in note 1 of your Act for financial statement. So if you're ever wondering what things are, they are described in there. There are a couple estimates that I want to draw your attention to. In the preparation of all financial statements, there's usually some estimates that are made by management. You have two really big estimates in the pension and OPEB area. OPEB is the other post-employment benefits. Those are retiree health care benefits. Those estimates are determined by actuaries. We do look at the actuaries' inputs. We do look at how they calculated the estimate, and we did find them to be in conformity with the standards. And there's also another one related to claims incurred but not reported. Those are the claims that you have incurred and not reported, I guess is the best way to say it. And that is also determined by an actuary. So we do look at those and make sure the estimates are reasonable. We had no uncorrected misstatements in the financial statements. So that means that we did not find anything that wasn't recorded that we may have passed on or whatever. So you got full, accurate representation of the city's financial statements. We had no disagreements with management throughout the process that we need to bring your attention to. There was one change in an accounting principle. They did implement this year what they call GASB 96, which is subscription-based information technology arrangements. And in note 2I, if you wanted to note that and look at it later, that's where you'll see the information related to that particular standard. But what that standard did is it took agreements that you signed with your multiple year software vendors, if you will, and had them record a liability and a right to use asset. It was GASB's way of kind of collecting long-term commitments. They kind of net off each other a little bit, so that asset kind of offsets the liability. So it's not really a huge impact, but it was a lot of work to be able to identify those, read the agreements, and get an idea of what liabilities that would create. So other than those few bits of information, I'm more than willing to take questions, either now or later, or so I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. I'm looking to my colleagues to see if you have any questions. Dr. Miles.
So funny. Last term I had like nothing to say. Now I'm just full of words. No, in all seriousness, I want to thank, as you expressed, Madam Mayor, thanks to finance staff. Recognition, I guess 33 years in a row, the budgeting practices is recognized by the Government Finance Officers Association, so strong work. And thanks also, sir, for the coronavirus audit. I know one of our neighboring jurisdictions didn't do so great in terms of their coronavirus funds. So thank you for the audit, and thanks to staff for keeping the books clean. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulton.
I will say in that regard, the popular annual financial report is really good. I have seen a lot of efforts in my day to make financial statements accessible and digestible, and that's the best I've ever seen. I think it's a good resource to us, and it's a good resource to our community to see where the money's getting spent and how. Fantastic work on that one.
I will say, dare I say, there should be a social media post about that report. It is fun. It's got great graphics. It makes it very simple and easy to understand. And it also celebrates some achievements. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Councilmember Shaw.
I also just wanted to echo that the popular annual financial report was excellent work. I would add just one demographic. I saw that there was 51% homeowners, and it would be great to consider for the next report the percentage of renters, considering that's almost half of our population. Thank you.
Dr. Miles.
So many words. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo the recognition for how easy things were to read. It seemed more readable and legible this time. I don't think it's just because I had looked at it before, but it's one of the reasons I don't have a whole lot in the way of questions, because it was so clear. So thank you. I have nothing more to say on that one.
Thank you. I have one question. There is a note that during fiscal year 23, the city's automated speed enforcement fund exceeded the budget appropriation due to you mentioned implementation of GASP 96 for SBITAs. Can you provide more insight on this? You don't have to do that right now, but that would be helpful to learn more about.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, welcome and thank you.
All right.
We appreciate you being here. And thank you as well for all the hard work. All right, Council, we have 2 items on consent agenda. I will first ask, shall we take these together, or does anyone want to pull one for discussion? Councilmember Larry?
What was that one again? I'd like to pull the community development block grant for discussion.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion for consent agenda item A, adoption of a resolution to dissolve and disband the Civic Center Subcommittee. Thank you, Councilmember. Any seconds? Councilmember Fulton, second? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Thank you. It is unanimous. All right, we can move to consent agenda item B, and Councilmember Valeri will take your questions and comments.
It might help to put my microphone on. While I completely appreciate, and I know I presented some questions to Ms. Hapty. Where is Ms. Hapty? Hi, Ezra. I know I presented some questions, and I appreciated your thoughtfulness in responding, and I understood kind of, where the funding level came from. I do want to get a little more in-depth from you on specifically the block grant for the women's shelter on Taft Court. And I know that I include this in my questions, but I'd like to hear more about it, because there are only 2 women-only shelters in the city, and they're both in Rockville. And I think that restoring that funding could do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people over time, which I think is one of the criteria. So anything more on the kind of the thought process, because that was probably one of the ones that was most striking to me.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for the questions. The Interfaith Works, they sought funding for $98,000. They wanted repairs. They wanted to do repairs, stripping the parking lot, install floodlights, fix a bathroom for staff. I forgot what other ones they wanted to do. So those were the things that they wanted to do. The selection committee felt that that it didn't directly impact the residents. So, for example, a few years ago, we provided them $129,000 to install a generator. That benefited the entire facility, especially the residents. So, given the limits on that, on the $263,000 overall that the CDBG grant is, the committee felt that those funds could be better used to the other projects. So, for example, we're funding the Jefferson House, right? Because the need is more critical. We're funding that project to fix their foundation, because if the foundation is faulty, then it kind of impacts the whole house. And also, as I shared previously, when the Interfaith and Cornerstone collectively applied, they did not spend the money timely. which caused us a delay in closing out the grant. So it's important that grantees close out within a 12-month period, and the committee did not feel that Interfaith could do that at this time.
In fairness, though, that time period was during COVID, when there was supply chain issues and other delays that might have been affected by the pandemic and some of that ripple effect, if I recall correctly. So there's no, you don't have to answer that. So it's kind of more of a comment. I'd also implore maybe for future proposals that the committee understand the importance of lighting as a safety measure.
Mm-hmm.
Floodlights are not optional when you have a shelter space that needs to remain safe, especially for anybody escaping abusive situations. I just don't see it as not for the good of everyone in the facility, because everyone in the facility needs to feel safe. And that's critically important. And, you know, that's not to denigrate at all. Jefferson House, I think they're all worthy, but
Exactly.
for me, again, it was just most jarring to see, again, one of only 2 women-only shelters, for us not to help them as much as we can. So, but thank you. I appreciated you answering all my questions. As I swear I won't be new all the time, but I really appreciated you giving me kind of the backstory on that.
Absolutely. And feel free to, as I offered, I'm more than willing to meet with you to go over past applications. And if you want to know more details about how we make the decisions and deliberations, we're more than glad.
Yeah, I like history. I think it informs us. We don't have to repeat it, but at least we can understand it a little bit.
Understood.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Great. Thank you, Ms. Hapte. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to move consent agenda item B. Mr. Van Graag
Second.
and Mr. Jackson, second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, we welcome back the finance team. We'll be hearing agenda item 11, introduction discussion. We'll have an FY25 budget priorities discussion. I will note we have now caught up on time, and hopefully we'll continue that trend. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Before I get started, I want to remind all of the members of the public who may be watching this evening that we do have a community budget survey that we are encouraging everyone to take, and that can be found at www.rockvillemd.gov/budget. The survey is available in 5 languages. Okay. So we're here this evening to facilitate a budget priorities discussion of the mayor and council. We have prepared a presentation that contains some budgetary information, background, and historical trends to help provide context for the guided discussion questions. We will reference the questions as we go through the presentation and circle back around to them at the end for discussion. The guided questions will be used to support the priorities discussion, and these cover some of the most publicly discussed topics in recent budget cycles. These cover topics on personnel and staffing levels, programs and services, prioritization, support to outside organizations, capital projects, and property taxes. So starting with personnel and staffing. This chart provides a history of the city's benefited full-time equivalent positions. 10 years ago, the city had just under 520 permanent FTEs. The FY 2024 adopted budget includes 540.5 permanent FTE positions. For context, the FY 2023 adopted budget included an additional 13.7 FTEs. That's where you see the increase here, which is also the year when we received the increase in tax duplication revenues for the city. This next chart shows a history of the city's temporary FTEs. The majority of the city's temporary FTEs support the recreation and parks programming and operations. 10 years ago, the city had 82.7 temporary FTEs. and the FY 2024 adopted budget includes 100.6 temporary FTE positions. The general fund, which funds the majority of the positions that the city has, experienced growth in personnel expenditures over the last 10 years. On average, personnel expenditures are increasing 3.6% per year as observed by the red trend line. In addition to the growth in the total number of funded positions, personnel expenditures are also increasing for the rising costs of healthcare benefits and pension costs, and also wage growth from cost of living adjustments, step increments, and merit-based pay. So that red dotted line is where we see the trend line. In response to recent changes to Montgomery County's patrolling assignments and service call responsibilities within Rockville, a funding agreement for the cost of 6 additional officers is being finalized between the city and the county. Staff anticipate that the associated revenues and expenditures will appear on a budget amendment sometime in FY 2024 for mayor and council approval. The first guided discussion question associated with the information just presented is on city staffing levels and whether the elected body believes staffing levels should be increased, maintained, or reduced. If the mayor and council wish to limit staffing increases to only those that will be funded by the Montgomery County agreement, that would be helpful for staff to understand as part of the later discussion. Moving into operating programs and services, it will be very helpful for staff to understand the top priorities of the mayor and council. To be clear for the public who may be watching this along with us this evening, the city provides financial resources that support all of these core functions that are listed. However, it may be possible to provide some enhanced funding in one or more of those areas in fiscal year 2025. We would very much appreciate the mayor and council providing feedback on their top priority areas. We understand that these are broad categories listed here, and this is a starting point, and we hope that the discussion will help fill in some additional details. So in addition to the set of services and functions provided on the previous slide, the city provides funding to outside agencies as part of the annual budget. This includes caregiver agencies who support families experiencing hardships, community organizations who provide a range of community programming, and Rockville Economic Development, Inc., also called READY, as the economic development arm of the city. The city traditionally increases the annual funding for caregivers by the CPIU increase year over year. As shown in this chart, the increases, which had commonly been between 1% and 2% per year, have been quite a bit higher, up to nearly 6% for the last 2 budget cycles. Many of the city's contractual services and commodities have also experienced significant increases that are tied to inflation. This question asks whether caregiver grants should be increased, maintained, or reduced for fiscal year 2025. In FY 2024, the city is providing 17 caregiver grants totaling approximately $754,000. This next guided question asks whether grants to community organizations and Rockville Economic Development, Inc. should be increased, maintained, or reduced. In FY 2024, the city is providing 14 community organization grants totaling approximately $402,000 and $1.3 million in funding to READY. On the subject of property tax rates, first it is important to understand that property tax revenue is the single largest general fund revenue. Also, while there are other revenue sources, many of those are pass-through revenues through the state of Maryland and Montgomery County, which we do not directly control. The municipality does have the ability to set the property tax rate at levels to support the operations of the city. The table shown provides a history of the city's property tax rate going back to 1990. Property taxes are assessed on each $100 of assessed value. Since 1995, the property tax rate has been reduced 5 times. The current tax rate has been held flat since fiscal year 2009. Now, if you recall the personnel growth trend that I mentioned previously, that same red line appears here in this chart. This chart shows the growth rate of our largest general fund revenue and our largest general fund expenditure. What we see is that on average, personnel expenditures are growing 3.6% per year, while the property tax revenue is only growing an average of 2.6% per year. And the trends indicate that the growth of personnel costs may continue to outpace property tax revenue growth. To provide some helpful context, adding 1 cent to the property tax rate generates approximately $1.5 million in additional revenues for the city. For a homeowner with a $750,000 assessed value home, this results in a $75 increase to their property tax bill. The State Department of Assessments and Taxation is responsible for performing the assessments on a 3-year cycle. When a property value increases, that increase is phased in over 3 years. When a property value decreases, that decrease is factored in fully in the first year. In recent years, we have observed some reduced valuations from large commercial properties in the city, primarily due to vacant office and industrial spaces. Staff are looking to understand how the mayor and council feel about changes to the city's real property tax rate. And this is a question we will circle back to later. On to our capital improvements program, also called the CIP. The city maintains a 5-year capital improvements program. The CIP is balanced over the 5 years, which means that the forecasted revenues, general fund transfers, and bond proceeds are expected to be sufficient to provide funding for the specified capital projects. That said, there are often some projects that carry unfunded balances in future years. While we are commonly seeking grants and looking for opportunities to identify funding for those projects and initiatives, there are often resource limitations. Capital projects are most often funded with pay-go funding, general obligation bond proceeds, grants, and state bond bills, and reserves that exceed our 20% target. This chart shows a 10-year history of outstanding debt. The orange line represents the enterprise funds, water, sewer, stormwater, and parking. Revenues from the ratepayers of those utility charges, stormwater charges, and parking fees are used to support enterprise fund debt. The blue line represents debt that supports governmental capital projects. We often call this taxpayer-supported debt because the general fund ultimately makes transfers to the debt service fund for the payment of this debt. As you can see from this chart, enterprise debt has traditionally been maintained at higher levels than governmental debt. The city is not limited in the amount of municipal debt that may be issued. However, each $1 million in debt results in approximately $70,000 in annual debt service, and we do need to ensure that we have the budgetary capacity to make all scheduled debt service payments. The city is AAA bond rated, and this allows us to borrow at the most competitive rates available. The final guided question looks to identify what forms of funding methods the mayor and council would support for one-time capital costs in the upcoming CIP budget. This concludes my presentation. I will circle back to the first question and hand this over to you, Mayor Ashton, for discussion. I'm also happy to take any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Before we move to question 1, does anyone have a broad question?
I have a broad question.
Councilmember Van Grack.
I just want to clarify, because I know you said, the public's listening as well with regard to the survey being open. Can you let us know how long the survey will be open and when the public can continue to use that before the city's going to view that survey data as final for our consideration?
The survey will be open through the middle of April. I believe it's April 12th of 2024.
And is there, because I know that staff's going to be working on the budget continuously, is there a benchmark time that you would want more recent, survey data, or you'll only be collecting them in April?
We are looking at survey data periodically, and we are providing the mayor and council with periodic updates as well. I believe you guys received the report as of October 31st. We plan to provide another one as of December 31st.
So would you then advise the public, while it's open till April, getting in the survey as soon as possible will have the most impact on the staff?
it allows us to do more with the information. The sooner we get it, the better, certainly. And of course, that information we hope is also helpful to the elected body
Sure.
as well. So certainly providing that feedback earlier, especially if you have any great ideas, allows us the time to investigate and review that.
Thank you. I was just going to add, if I may, that last year we increased by 300% from where we started. We want to get that even double beyond what we did last year, so please fill out the survey. But also just to note, it is open until April. Staff works on the budget. I know the city manager will be delivering us a draft and posting that around the end of February timeframe, maybe early March. So if you want to be in the first round of consideration, just keep that time frame in mind. There have been times when mayor and council and through discussions we've made adjustments, but it's really good to get the data up front. So I appreciate the question. And also just want to make sure that the public is also knowing that this is your budget as well, and we want to hear from you. Any other general questions before we move to question 1? Thank you. While you're pulling that up, I'll give you some transition time. Dr. Miles.
So sorry. I guess this question about the presentation itself. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
I apologize. I had the questions done Thursday, but saved the email under a different, or saved the document under a different document title. So sorry for just getting to the questions to you today. But one of them just occurred to me a moment ago. On slide 16, when you're looking at percentages, this is packet page 576. I wanted to know, is there a way to look at actual numbers? Because this is like the growth trends in percentage of budget, but not actual the gross numbers. Is there a way to get that information? Like
Certainly.
The amount of money?
Certainly. I
Okay.
think this was just intended to help show that our personnel spending, our largest expenditure, is beginning to outpace the growth in our largest general fund revenue, that being property tax. But we can certainly provide that information in raw numbers as well.
Again, my apologies. I'm putting you on the spot there, but yeah, I can get that one later. And then I'll just end it with this question. I'm trying to follow this stuff. This is why you all are in finance and I'm not. But the interaction between inflation and the bond market, meaning is it a good time to invest in or get bonds from a city's perspective when inflation is high versus low? That question, I just don't know. I don't know if that's a question you can answer now versus offline. It's more of a general thing because it helps me inform how I answer the question that you all pose to us in terms of how to provide more revenue.
Sure. So as anyone would experience in times like these, the borrowing rates are going to be higher. But that being said, right now, because we are AAA bond rated, those AAA issues usually result in interest rates at or below 4%. So it's not going to be quite what a regular consumer might see on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. It's going to be more competitive. So something like, a 4.4% or a 3.5%, that might be higher than what we have received in years past when the market was a little cooler. But it's still pretty good, I think, relative to what non-AAA entities are receiving for sure, and still within a comfortable range. Stacy, would you agree?
I agree, and I'll just say that AAA rated general obligation municipal bonds are desirable in the investment market, so I think we will continue to see competitive rates for the issuance of our bonds going forward.
Thank you. And to that point, I remember a couple of years ago, you actually were able to, what the equivalent of is refinance because we were able to take advantage of the lower interest rates at the time, which saved the city money. So I appreciate the work of the finance department as well as maintaining our AAA bond rating, but just wanted to make that correlation. I know we're going to go to the FTE questions. One question I had is related to the police officers. We know that the county is pulling back their 6 officers and that there's some discussions about getting funding from them. Is that feeling quite firm? Because I think that might inform the response from some of my colleagues. I do think that we need to continue to support public safety, and have the officers we need, given that by November 1st already we were at 84% of the calls, we were previously at 70%. We also to make sure that we are competitive so that when the positions become available that we can actually make the hires. If you could provide insight on that.
Madam Mayor, there continues to be dialogue with the county on this just within the last 2 weeks, and the municipalities are urging the county to give us some firm information as we prepare our budgets. They say they're still working through it. We've offered to give them any more information they need, but there has been no indication that they will not provide the funding. It seems to be they're working through it to figure it out. We're not going to do it. So thus far.
Thank you. And one other question, sorry, just to help context, and I'm going to move to my colleagues. The permitting department, I know that part of one way you can get economic development or additional tax revenue is to do economic development and to move some projects along. The website notes that expedited reviews are no longer possible now due to staffing shortages. As we answer this question, that might be helpful context for us to know, because that might have an impact on our ability to encourage and entice additional investment in the city, which will support the tax base.
I don't have a good answer for you now, but we will get back to you on what we could do in that regard to offer more expedited review. We do not offer it now, but I'll have to get back with CPDS to see what we can do and get you a better answer.
I saw Councilmember Van Grack.
Yeah, just following up with what you said, Madam Mayor, she was just talking about the additional funding from Montgomery County for the officers. Aside from the officers themselves' salary, them pulling back from services is also going to be a lot of other aspects, such as vehicles, equipment for those officers. Is there a talk for funding for things other than just the officers, but also the support and infrastructure behind those officers?
The funding agreement, as I understand it, will include resources for equipment and things like that, and vehicles as well. That's been folded in.
Okay.
Councilmember Fulton.
Thank you. One baseline big picture question going into the other questions. I know that there's a target to have 20% above the operating budget in reserves. We were above that, I saw in the financial statements last year. What's our trend in that regard? Can you give me a sense of, are we historically always above the 20? How far above the 20? It'll help me baseline for everything else.
I would say historically we're about between 25 and 28% when the target is 20%.
Okay.
In general, the rating agencies like to see something 25 or above. And what we've done in the past is after the fiscal year is closed out, and we did this year, we come back to the mayor and council with a budget amendment at the beginning of the next fiscal year when we know when that audited balance is, well, we know what it is, and then we appropriate those funds over the 20% for some CIP. So we ended the year, I believe it was 8.9 million above the target, but currently we are only standing at 3.6 million above the target. The target's also a moving target because it's based on each year's revenue number. So it goes up over time as our revenues go up over time.
You just reminded me of another question. Sorry. When I was reading the financial statements, obviously there's an estimate of what the total year's revenue will be at the beginning of every year. Historically, how close are we to hitting that? Are we normally above or are we below?
So we have a performance measure that is plus or minus 5% of the adopted budget will be our actuals. And I think we've been in compliance with that performance measurement over the last.
So where it gets a little tricky is that the performance measure looks at where we are as compared to the adopted budget. But as many of you know, we do amend the budget a couple of times over the year. And so we may end up, a little bit above that 5% or a little bit below that 5%. But in many cases, we've amended the budget to provide additional appropriations in a certain area. And sometimes it's indeed using those reserves. So as an example, we allocated $5 million in excess reserves to the CIP at the end of FY23. So that additional $5 million expenditure wouldn't have been in the adopted budget, but it was in the amended budget. So it's a little bit nuanced, but in general, we usually tend to be within that plus or minus 5% range.
Sorry, one follow-up, because that's how close we were on matching the budget to the revenues, but just in predicting the revenues.
Oh, just
right?
in the revenues.
Like, are we normally spot on, a little high, a little low? Does that question make sense?
So I can tell you that for FY23, I actually just looked at this for FY23. It was, I want to say it was 5.9%. Nice. So we were 5.9% above what the adopted budget was. We did, however, amend the budget, particularly for income tax, because we saw that FY22 was just, it came in much stronger than we even anticipated. So we did amend FY23 at one point.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And also on page 73 of the budget, there is a graph that shows our fund balance, and it goes back to FY20. It shows a historical. It shows where we think we'll be for FY24 and through the forecast period. That would be a great graph that I wish I could just pull up if I had it at my fingertips, but it is in the budget book at page 73.
Thank you. I made some comments on question 1, alluding to where I was at. Do any of my colleagues have any comments about question 1? What say you? Councilmember Van Grack.
Thank you. With regard to question 1 and the full-time positions, I do think they need to be increased. I think that one of the things that I hear around the city is with regard to, for example, enforcement. And, you know, just as we were talking about before, expedited review of projects as well. There are things that we can do not only to enhance the services to our citizens, but also working with our commercial partners and some of the developers as well to make sure that what we can do and provide to them will help the city and also potentially help revenue.
Councilmember Larry.
On this, I am in agreement that I think staffing levels should be increased to support expanded services. To that point, and I recall this from the last budget season. Budget season makes it sound fun.
It is fun.
It is fun. It is actually a lot of fun. I'm not even gonna lie, from this side too. Have we taken another look at the health insurance options, seeing as that's a huge component of staffing level expenses, providing health insurance for staff and employees? I know that it was a point during the last budget, and I do believe there's more of a potential for cost savings there, which would then affect, you know, I think for others too, maybe the answer to the staffing levels, because you're looking at that as such a large component of staffing levels. So I would be interested in that, but I agree that there could be cost savings while also providing perhaps a higher level of options in that regard for staff.
I was just going to give context. So during the last budget season, we have 2 different types of health plans. One is has had sort of predicted levels of increases. One that was higher than predicted. I think we had predicted 5% growth, and it was in maybe the 20s. And the city subsequently took on more of the cost share, 8416, because it was going to be such a big increase on employees, and we want to make sure that we can continue to provide our employees health insurance, and while it being such a big cost burden. But I believe at that time staff was looking at options just to make sure that we were trying to get the most competitive rates possible while also having a solid plan for our employees. I'm assuming that will be part of the budget discussion this year as well, so that you'll give us an update on that.
We can certainly provide an update on the city's health benefits. We, I think, just concluded open enrollment, or will be in the next day or two.
Any other comments on this question? Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah, I'll be short. I think
the city staffing levels should be increased to support expanded or enhanced service levels. So just to get that on the record and help you guys as you do the budget.
Councilmember Shaw.
I also agree, and I think they should be increased to expand and enhance the service levels and to meet the needs of our community members.
Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm going to be the Grinch of the budget process. I'm super worried about how we're going to pay for all this, to be quite honest. I think, I'll answer the question. I think positions should be maintained at this point. As everybody up here knows, the county passed a property tax hike. If we want to expand services, I'm just concerned with where we're going to get the money from. And I'll start with the beginning or the end of the beginning. As we get there, I won't be in favor of property tax increase, but I'm just trying to live within our means. And so to that end, I want to maintain FTEs as we have them right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Fulton.
I'll be a Grinch with you. Assuming we're setting aside the positions for the police force to make up for the county, assuming that's not what we're talking about, I struggle in the absence of data, metrics, backlog, enhanced services we would be providing. Do we have a backlog on requests? I struggle to say, yes, we need to increase without having some of that data to tell me what we would be buying or what sort of relief we would be getting our staff. So if I had some of that, I would absolutely get behind should be increased to support expanded or enhanced services. In the absence of that, I don't expect you to have it. I'm actually with Councilmember Miles on should be maintained for now.
Thank you. And I'll just reiterate, I noted strategic look at 6 new police officers to make sure that, and I know that money will be coming from another source, so that is something that should be budget neutral, if not supportive. I do also just want to make sure, I know that we added some positions in planning. However, if we are at such a backlog, then I want to understand what positions are needed. And I believe we also increased fees to help pay for positions. So maybe it's a matter of vacancies, and hopefully that's the case, that we can fill those positions. Lastly, I would just note that I'd like to ensure that the city manager's office and directors continue to review vacant positions and see if there are any spots that need to be repurposed to meet other needs the city may have. And then I would like strategic look on what are the areas where maybe we have some space because we have less need, and giving it to places that we need more need with an eye towards maintaining and living within our means so that we can make sure that we continue that AAA bond rating. Councilmember Jackson.
I'm sorry, I saw Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Van Graff.
I was just going to add to what the mayor said. Also, potentially, taking a look if there are positions that need to be eliminated, because for whatever reason, those positions aren't doing what we need to, because we have a lot of, council members are talking about increasing in certain areas. If there's positions that really don't have a need or a function in the review, I think that could be a part as well.
Do you have what you need on this question?
I believe we do. We can move on to the next one.
Thank you. All right, so now we're at the next question to select our priorities. And just to clarify, many of these things are priorities. What you're asking us to look at is if there is additional enhancement funds available where the body would like to include some of those considerations for that funding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I just want to make sure the public knows that, just maybe because one thing is not mentioned, we still have funding in the core budget to support these areas.
That's correct. All of these elements are part of our budget. These items are funded in different ways, in different funds, in different departments. This looks at if we find that we have additional resources, where would you ideally like to see those aligned?
Thank you. Did you have an addition, Mr. City Manager? Thank you, Mr. Semino. All right, Councilmember Valeri, let's have fun.
Woohoo! This is the fun part. So I got prepared for tonight's meeting. I looked at this, and I looked at it some more. And I think part of my struggle in selecting just 3, and I understand why we need to, but a lot of these are intertwined with others. And I think it would be hard to say, yes, I want to put additional resources into the maintenance of existing infrastructure, for instance, recognizing that economic development comes from an infrastructure that makes it easier for businesses to function or more attractive to bring businesses in. So they're all kind of intertwined. They're not only foundational, like social justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, but in my mind, as far as like additional resources, let's say I really want, some new capital infrastructure to support our walkability, like I would want additional resources there, but that is also a part of active living. So would that then be additional resources that, am I making sense or am I just babbling? Okay. So that was kind of my struggle. I understand, and I understand from a previous conversation of kind of where this comes from as far as like for your process, and I want to be helpful in that regard. It's just hard for me to even say, okay, that would be a line item here because it could be living in like 3 different spots, and that's where I am struggling. So maybe I'm the only one, but I think that's what made it tougher for me.
I think what we could do, if it would be helpful, if like walkability for pedestrians or bicycles, if that's a priority, that you can just say that. You don't have to pick one of these items, and we can just write that down as your item. So these are just some ideas, but if whatever, your item doesn't neatly fall into one of these categories, we don't
That
have to
just made
choose
it so much easier for me because I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't choose one. That is super helpful. I will then defer to my other colleagues while I retool my thoughts.
Councilmember Fulton, I saw your hand earlier.
Well, I could do 2 things. I could either say I agree with Councilmember Valeri, but I found my way through that and offer that solution, or I could just tell you what I was going to do. Like I'm like a rule follower and a good student. I picked mine. Are you ready? Community safety, number 1. I placed new capital infrastructure and facilities as number 2 for the reasons Councilmember Valeri said. I put walking infrastructure in there. I put finishing what we started in King Farm in there. So that's why I'm putting that as number 2. And then my 3rd was economic development, whatever it takes to get that better jump started and going for the reasons the mayor said, like we're going to need to find revenue somewhere and we got to get that up and going. Those are my 3.
Thank you. Councilor Miles, and then Councilman Van Grack. Go ahead, I'll come back to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Van Grack. I'll make it quick. My top, so number 1 would be community safety, police, fire inspections, pedestrian, bicycle safety. 2, sustainability and climate resilience. 3, economic development. And as was mentioned previously, there are things that are intertwined through all this, and I think be it community safety, sustainability, climate resilience, or economic development, we have to do it all through an equity lens. And so that's just cooked in the batter, as I would like to say. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Grack is next.
Well, there's going to be a chorus, at least with the last 2. My number 1 is also community safety. I think that's something, if we looked at the last budget, I know the mayor and council had to make choices. And one of the difficult choices they had to make was versus what the staff put together, which was the full kind of what Police Chief Brito talked about he needed for the staffing of the police department. And I think that's got to be a higher priority for the budget compared to previously. And whether it's the equipment they need, and as I noted before, and we were talking about what's going to happen with Montgomery County, I don't know that even with what Montgomery County gives to us, that's going to be enough to shift what we're doing because we're used to having some support. So I think giving the police department support is going to be a priority. And I also want to mention the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department. Last year in the budget, the only aspect of money that went to them was the $10,000 reimbursement for the water bill. And that was it. So to the extent, I was actually in the office talking with the president this summer, and we couldn't actually meet in his office because there was an HVAC problem, and they literally couldn't get air conditioning in his office. So to the extent they might need some infrastructure help, I'd love to be able to see that we can support the fire department. Also, I want to echo what my colleagues were saying about overlaps, but two overlaps that I think I'd like to see a priority is dealing with your categories of active living and quality neighborhoods. And there's overlap with regard to pedestrian access. There's overlaps with regard to both bicycle safety and cycling safety. There's issues with regarding park accessibility and park infrastructure. We heard from Bob Wright at the last public hearing. He was talking about how Wooten Mills doesn't have, and any park around there doesn't have any facility for someone to have an event because there's no, shaded area. So those are areas, and I think when we talk about services, I know a lot of us were on the campaign trail. A lot of people talk about their neighborhoods and having the quality neighborhoods. And to the extent that we address that with the green spaces in the neighborhoods, those are three categories that I think are important. But I want to echo what Councilmember Miles and Councilmember Fulton said, that community safety, at least for me, is a number one key priority.
Thank you. Just one clarification. The last mayor and council actually included more than what the city budget actually initially provided. But it was different than what was in the full enhancements list. So I wanted to clarify that we actually went in and added additional funding. I know my former colleague is agreeing with me there. I know she'd like to come up to the mic at some point. I know she's just holding. And I wanted to ask staff a quick question. So I know that we have given water to the Rockville Fire Department, volunteer fire department, who does tremendous work. And I would just note that so many volunteers beyond what, that are doing things and are not getting payment and are keeping our city safe. So they're an important part of our public safety network. But can you just clarify? I know we gave them $10,000. Was that in addition to the water, not charging them for water, or was that inclusive of not charging them for water? I thought it was $10,000 plus not charging them for water.
I believe we've traditionally given them $10,000 per year. There have been years where we've provided additional financial assistance to assist in their purchase of replacement trucks and emergency vehicles. So it hasn't just been limited to that $10,000 per year. But they do not receive free city water, if that's your question.
Yeah, I heard something about water, so I wanted to just make sure that we're clear.
Yeah, the $10,000 is a reimbursement for their water expenses.
Right. Thank you for clarifying.
All right. So I actually follow the rules, but also after hearing Councilman Valeri, I have a little tweak. So like everybody said, community safety is number one priority, whether it's police, firefighters, or enforcement of codes. I think that's really important. Economic development, like the mayor has said, is going to be crucial to getting our tax revenues up. And the third is actually a combination. New capital infrastructure and or facilities, and maintenance of existing infrastructure. And by new capital infrastructure, I'm like council member Fulton, I'm thinking about the farmstead, but I'm also thinking about the senior center access and the fact that neighborhoods, King Farm, Falls Grove, Rockshire, desperately need that senior center access. So those are my three priorities.
Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
So my three are community safety, affordable housing, and my third is an other, which is community engagement. And I think we, for a very long time, have identified an issue with not reaching a number of communities, and we need to invest in that. to actually obtain the objectives that we're talking about. So those are my three.
Thank you. And I will also add to what my colleagues have said, very thoughtful responses, and I agree with them. I do think that the social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as sustainability, needs to be intertwined in all the activities versus standalone. I mean, that's just how we need to operate, right? And I know that we have plans, one in development and one that we've approved that we're working through. I know that Rockville is incredibly safe from this perspective of we've gotten the 12th Safest City Award, but I also know that there has been an impact as a result of inflation and post-COVID and the mental impacts of what has transpired over the past few years on how people feel safe and also some of the activity that's happening. And so when I looked at public safety, I looked at it from a comprehensive perspective. Yes, we need to do the right things to make sure that our police are fully staffed. But we also need to look at active living, teen youth program, internships, things that give also at-risk students and youth positive alternatives. I think that's an important part of public safety. I also looked at sidewalk infrastructure, the walkability, those things. To me, that makes up a more comprehensive look at community and public safety. Economic development, I mentioned previously, we need to find ways to increase the tax base without burdening our residents on tax increase. And I think housing is part of that. If I pull out housing, I know that we have in the past looked at advocating on the senior tax credit and the MPDU program. There's some things in the comprehensive plan that I think maybe not budget things, but policy things that we need to move upon. I also think quality neighborhoods, you have to have that. People move here, they pay taxes to be here because of the quality of our neighborhoods and the experience they have. Again, that crosses some things you have on infrastructure, walkability. I agree, Councilman Van Grack, I had sheltered areas and parks, and those are things that help to make sure that our neighborhoods are high quality and people can safely move about. Councilman Valeri.
I think I have my answer now. I was very stymied at first, but like previously stated, for certain, I'm going all other because now that Ms. Webster's given me the thumbs up, I'm all other now. So walkability and improving the transit infrastructure, I think is key. I think it's key to economic development. I think it's actually key to, in many ways, affordable housing, looking at denser, more walkable communities. And I'm going to throw out there new capital infrastructure, not only in terms of, I'll be the blue sky person because I think many things are possible. Where there's a will, there's a way to at least get the ball rolling. So there's some existing capital infrastructure that's in process, specifically around pedestrian and bicyclists' ability to get around the city more easily. I think we can expand upon that. I think we can connect even more communities, like from one side of First Street to the other. So making it easier for communities to get across both Rockville Pike, 355, Hungerford, and First Street between East Rockville and Twin Brook. I think all those have these opportunities to connect communities as well as put an emphasis on more walkable and more environmentally friendly transit options. If we're looking into the future, we want to look at more environmentally sustainable infrastructure. And then the other part that I am somewhat dovetailing Madam Mayor's suggestion, and that is if we want to look at community safety and quality neighborhoods, everything, I think we need to look at an investment in youth and young people in the same way that we look at investing in senior citizens as well. I think these are two very important constituencies, and so I would like to see some short-term and long-term visioning. So short-term, how can we expand teen programming, young people programming, both in official capacity and then through Rex and Park and Rexton Park. But also, I would love to explore the possibility of having a complimentary youth center. So we have the Senior Citizen Center. I would love to see, it doesn't have to be quite as maybe as large of an undertaking, but creating a safe place for young people, I think would be absolutely critical, because I think there's a lot of things coming out of COVID that we should consider, and I think senior citizens felt it. I think young people have felt it too. So that is my priorities as of right now. Sorry.
I know we've said a lot. Do you have any clarification requests? And all right, Councilman Fulton.
Sorry, I said I was a rule follower. I'm going to break my rule. There's a 4 other, and I agree with Councilmember Shaw. Like, if we're looking at if there's extra money in one given budget year, what would we put it towards to make a long-term difference? Yeah, community engagement and community outreach. Whether that be, I know that there's some money already there for an internet redesign or internet and things like that. I think investing in that in the short run, all of us have spoken about that prior to arriving here, and I think investing in that is a really good idea.
You inspired others. Councilmember Harry Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. So there is a 4th. I know, but it's important. The aging in place. So if we have extra money, aging in place is really important to seniors, but also to building quality neighborhoods and safety as well. And the other thing that is really important, and I believe my colleagues have said this, it goes through everything that we do, is social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And to that end, if we have extra money, I really would like to see the ADA compliance person, full-time staff. I think that's really important to look at all we do and make sure that we're complying with ADA. Thank you.
Councilmember Shaw.
I just wanted to add, so I have picked my 3, but there is a really powerful lens in which I want to look at this, and that is social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And when I say that, that means identifying the communities that are going to be most impacted or most negatively impacted, and those communities that will benefit from each of the decisions, as well as climate resiliency.
Thank you. I know we're going to continue this trend. So, Councilman Van Grack and Dr. Mouse, you have something else you want to add? Okay.
I am not adding a 4th. I just want to be clear. I'm not adding a 4th. I just wanted to clarify because one of mine was active livings and quality neighborhoods. I want to agree with Councilmember Jackson when he talked about funding to the extent we can the additional entrance from Goody Drive to the senior center. I know there have been some studies on that, and I think that would fall into some of the categories that I've already mentioned, and I want to support what he mentioned.
Thank you. The last mayor and council, we did support the study. Do you think we'll be moving to implementation in this fiscal year?
We funded design, I believe.
Yes.
So I do not think the design, we're just doing the community advisory group. I don't think we'll have the design far enough in this budget year for 25 construction, but we will check on that before the budget comes out.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check. Appreciate that.
Are we ready to move on to the next question?
I know you want to speed because you don't want any more priorities added, but did we give you enough? I'm sure we gave you too much.
Yes, yeah, no, this has been helpful. We're taking notes, and yes, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we're on to discussing funding for caregiver agencies and want to get my colleagues' opinion on whether they should be increased, maintained, or reduced. I knew Dr. Miles was going to be first on this one. Go ahead.
I'm like the overachiever, right? No. I was that kid for a little bit in school. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just make it quick. I actually have a question, then I'll answer the question. One, I believe we worked last session to, I think, PEG funding for caregiver agencies to like peg it to inflation or some sort of inflationary target. Is that true?
That's correct. I just pulled up the CPI chart. So we have been increasing the caregiver grant allocation each year by the CPIU increase, and that historical table is here.
Perfect. So that's going to help me answer the question. So I would essentially maintain it at that CPI indexed amount, meaning that's going to continue to increase with CPI, but I don't, again, being mindful of how we're going to pay for everything, I want to keep things as they are. Keeping in mind that there is an inflationary increase. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Van Grack.
I just want to say that I agree with Councilmember Miles. Keeping it and maintaining it with that CPI index, I think, is the right way to go.
Let me ask, is everyone who agrees with this, just quickly? I'm watching the time. All right. Do you have enough? Thank you. I'm saving you time. All right, so the next question, and I question about whether we should put these two together, but these are really two separate questions. So can we maybe take part with, do you agree, what do you think about increasing, maintaining, or reducing grant funding for community organizations? I'll take that one first.
Quick question, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
So what are you going to break it up into? What's going to be the second question? It's fine.
The next one is ready, because
Okay, you're going to do ready separate.
Right. Mm-hmm. Can you give my colleagues just some background on the community organizations? Because I know that you talked about caregiver, but there are some distinguished characteristics about this different type of funding.
Sure. So the community organization grants, so the caregiver agencies, these are specific organizations that support individuals and families who are in need and experiencing hardships. Community organization grants are grants given to other Rockville organizations that provide different types of community support. So here's just some examples of what those organizations are. Some will sound familiar to you. VisArts is an example. The Rockville Volunteer Fire Department, as we talked about, that the grant for the water support. Rockville Sister Cities, the resident theater companies, so the musical theater, Rockville Little Theater, RHE, Rockville Housing Enterprises. So those are sometimes referred to as partner organizations, but sometimes there are other organizations that are newer to the list. Sunflower Bakery was new as part of last year's budget, and so they're a new grant recipient. Unlike the caregiver agency grants, we have not tied the community organization grants to any inflationary factors. And so the amounts that are awarded year by year vary based on the applications that are submitted and based on information that is provided by those organizations. They sometimes provide annual reports and things like that that help give the city a sense of how things are going and how resources are being used. So that's some background on those community organization grants. Was that helpful?
Does anyone have any other questions about that? Okay, so what say you?
Do we want to like go through do community organizations first and then
Yes,
okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Then I think it should be increased for community organizations.
And just to clarify, is it just generally increased, or are you looking at CPI as we were doing with the other? Okay, CPI.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
No, I think it should be maintained and increased by the CPI.
Thank you. Councilman Van Grack.
I'm just going to echo. I mean, in looking at, obviously, there could be different requests coming in, but how the mayor and council dealt with it last budget session, I thought they did an excellent job with what was coming through. So to maintain, if we're going to do it similar to adjusted inflation if we need to, but at a maintenance and similar level.
And to clarify, this would be applying CPI. Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure.
I think it should be maintained tied to CPI.
And that would be new, correct? So that would be, just to clarify, we did not do CPI last time on this, so this would be
That's
adding.
correct.
Perfect, thank you.
So,
Councilmember Fulton.
just to clarify, maybe we just used this language last time, but when we say maintained, what we mean is increased by 3.7% or something, right? That's what we mean when we say that.
It sounds like that's what I'm hearing now.
Okay.
So, and why I wanted to clarify with my comment is we did not do a CPI increase last time, but this would be adding a CPI increase.
No, I just want, to use of maintain, we're talking about an increase. I would, actually, I would just maintain at the outset without the CPI. And also use the same logic we talked about with headcount FTE. Maintain at an aggregate, we can move around within those buckets, is where I'm at right now.
Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll co-sign my fellow Grinch. I'll just maintain it without CPI at this point, at least, until we see how the numbers shake out. Again, I'm just perhaps a little more worried than I should be. You all do a great job on making the numbers work, but I'm just trying to make it easy on you.
I have a question. Is there a possibility to look at budget amendments to see where you are, and then come back and add additional funding? I'm just asking a process question for this particular category for community organizations.
So the short answer would be yes, it's possible, but I think that it would also likely require that the city attorney's office review and amend those agreements, those grant agreements. So it would probably be like a two-step process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I want to be clear. I was not specifically stating that we need to keep this number to the CPI. It's more what the budget funding's word. I'm looking, similar to what Councilmember Fulton and Councilmember Miles, I think there should be maintained. If we need for a specific proposal that it is increased because we're going to fund it similarly, at that point I would. But based on what we are funding at a similar level, I think it should be maintained.
Thank you for that clarification.
So actually, not totally on that point though. So if anybody prioritized affordable housing, and I didn't have it didn't make the cut, but I think it was Councilmember Shaw did, then we should look. Would you then look at increasing the funding for outside organizations, specifically the community organizations like RHE?
That's one option. That would be one possibility, but not the only one. The city also has a Housing Opportunities Fund, and that's another, option. And Housing and Community Development, that department also puts on various programs that support those initiatives as well. So we can get to things different ways, and that's why these discussions are helpful for us to hear, so we can understand if the mayor and council have a preferred way.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I alluded to where I am. I'd like to see where we net out and if we can support folks a bit more and reflect on a budget amendment. I would be open to doing that. I want to make sure I'm cautious because of what I'm seeing trend-wise in the county with some of the commercial real estate write-downs. And I just want to make sure we're in a good position. But I want to support our community organizations, especially given that ARPA funding is also running out. This is one of the last years for that. So if we can adjust later, I'm open to it, but I want to also be cautious financially. Second is the READY question. I know this new body has not heard a presentation from READY. That will happen, I believe, in January. We'll talk about that during future agendas. However, the question is, do you believe that funding for READY should be increased, maintained, or reduced? I have one clarification before we go to, hearing what all of my colleagues say. So in the previous budget cycle, we supported READY for their Small Business Incentive Fund. And how is the city looking at their funding? For example, could they repurpose some of the monies that were that one-time payment to an entity in the Small Business Incentive Fund to be able to continue to support their efforts, or you're going to be looking at taking that away and that would be an enhancement for them? I just want to clarify, because that maintained and reduced, or that means something in terms of how you're thinking about the funding between FY24 and 25.
Sure. So we would look at the base budget, if you will, or the core services budget for Ready as one that excludes what had been identified as one-time funding in fiscal year 24. So that, I believe it was $100,000, would be essentially removed from what would be called their baseline, essentially. So anything in addition would be an enhancement for them.
Okay. I don't know if my colleagues are ready to express feelings on that. Go ahead.
I actually appreciated that clarification. and with that clarification, I would just say that it would be maintained.
For me, I actually would like to use that one-time funding to be able to support other economic development activities. So where you say maintained, I think that we need to give them the flexibility to use that funding to get other net new businesses into the city that are going to help to ultimately support the economic tax base if they can bring in net new. So that's where I am. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I am with your clarification. I'm fine with maintaining it, with the caveat that it Ready helps all businesses in Rockville and not just one specific location. So I'm fine with maintaining it.
And you're maintaining it at what they were with their incentive fund last year, or reducing, as they're interpreting it, to the baseline?
Either. I would let staff decide.
Okay. Councilmember Fulton.
Yeah, this is getting confusing. Assuming that maintain is an actual reduction.
It is.
Then assuming the money can be used for different economic, I would go to increase to bring to what would be the baseline.
Thank you for the clarification. Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I sign on to what my colleague, Councilmember Fulton said. I think my third priority was business and stimulating and recruiting business, because that helps support the tax base, and that's why I could make this I wouldn't call it an exception, but it's just consistent with what I said before. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Larry. I was struggling with this one, especially with Ready, because they haven't had an opportunity to kind of tell us what their vision is. I'm with Councilmember Jackson that whatever their vision is, I am hopeful that it is about looking at economic development in every corner of the city and finding those best practices. There are a lot of businesses that came in and are thriving, and then there are some that are struggling, and I understand, but I kind of want to reserve my answer for after Ready briefs us, so I will do a conditional should be maintained, which is actually a reduction, whatever. You explained it so much better, but with the caveat, I'd like to hear what their vision is as well.
Thank you. And to clarify, the Small Business Incentive Fund used to be focused on town center. However, the last mayor and council asked them to do two things. One is to look at some of their funding to be able to go beyond town center, so that now businesses in King Farm, businesses in Twinbrook, businesses across the city can apply for that fund. The second is they have now looked at mechanisms to go beyond office move, but to allow other incentive funds to bring in net new businesses. So I just wanted to clarify some of my colleagues of some of the changes that have been made over the past year or so. Any other comments? Councilmember Shaw.
I think we should increase the amount to Ready.
Thank you. Any other comments or clarifications? Do you have any questions for us on this topic?
No, I think we have what we need on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did you net out in terms of understanding whether we're overall, just to make sure?
It sounds like the majority of the body would like to see that previously earmarked funding provided to Ready to advance more economic development activities. I got a majority.
Thank you.
That way.
think this is going to be an easy question, but let's see. How do you feel about changes to the city's real property tax rate? This was a debate question for many of us. So, for some of us, okay, the mayoral race. I saw your head shaking though. Councilman Van Grack.
I do not think the city should be increasing property taxes.
So let me just do a show of hands. Do you want to do a show of hands? You guys? Okay,
We
let's
can
see
do a straw poll.
who thinks we should not increase property taxes. Keep it where it is. Okay, you don't have to answer yet. You can hold for conditional discussion. So, not increase, not increase. Are you raising your hand to talk, Councilmember Fulton? Okay. It's a half hand. Okay, so not increase. All right, there we go. Now we have one conditional, and then Councilmember Fulton, go ahead.
My conditional is increase the tax rate in future years. We were talking about yes or no, and I want to look at it in future years. Thanks for pre-grinching me on that, because that was going to be one of the things that I would be open to it in future years, if needed. Thanks for making me say that at my second meeting ever. But it would be useful to see neighboring jurisdictions trends over line and where we currently fit in before looking at that. But again, not for this year.
Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I started where we ended in terms of not being in favor of an increase. However, had a discussion, I think the budget director or finance director, and perhaps you're going to come back to us in the coming discussions, making us very aware of what we're signing up for when we say we don't want to increase. I think you said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and you can come to us later or tonight, but if our residents expect a certain level of service, and as you correctly point out in the slide, like cost per service is increasing, funds have to come from somewhere. So it's having those tough discussions. I think this is probably going to be the most difficult decisions that we have to make. As I indicated earlier, I do want to live within our budget. I think Councilmember Feinberg was adept in helping us figure out ways to look under the sofa cushions for nickels and pennies that added up. But I think going back to some of those discussions is going to be very helpful. But we're just going to have a sobering discussion ultimately, I think, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Looking to our finance team, do you have what you need from us on this question?
Yes, I believe so.
It is hot. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, right? It's not just you. It's not just you.
It wasn't the question?
Yes,
All this talk
the
about
question.
budget is making
Oh,
me
money
sad.
for air conditioning, right?
Last question, and this is probably the easiest one.
So the last question relates to funding methods to provide appropriations for one-time capital costs in the upcoming CIP budget. So we have general obligation bond proceeds, reserves above the 20% target, PAYGO funding, and other. I'm going to ask my colleagues, do you need any explanation, or would you like staff to start with some orientation on this question? Dr. Miles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You said general obligation bond proceeds. We're saying that same thing as debt as the first box? Okay, just want to be clear. Thank you.
And I'm hearing that there's a desire for a briefing on this question.
Is there a specific question?
Councilmember Jackson?
No, thank you. I'm curious about PAYGO funding, if you could, elucidate.
Sure. PAYGO funding is essentially funds that come from either the general fund to the CIP or cash financing other projects that are within the fund. So like water, sewer, for instance, if we were cash funding projects that were improving the water treatment plant, as an example. That's basically just out of pocket PAYGO. That's what we call it. The CIP is a separate fund, the Capital Projects Fund. And so in some cases there are transfers between the general fund. In other cases, it all lives within the underlying enterprise fund.
And earlier you mentioned that we have transferred funds from reserves to capital, so that was an example of one of these options. Not an option, but we do like to see it when we can get it, is grant funding. So I would just say, I would imagine everyone up here would shake their hand on that one.
that was going to be my comment, Madam Mayor, so yes. I didn't see it on there, but yes.
Like I know, for example, we've been applying for some of the pedestrian bridge. There's a grant that we've applied for that. We're looking at all of the infrastructure federal funding opportunities as well. And I know I've had extensive conversations with Mrs. Simoneau about that. So that is a given understood. With that said, are there any other mechanisms that you would like to explore? I'm looking at my colleagues. Any comments or questions on this one?
Madam Mayor, I will say it is best practices to utilize all these methods.
Right.
In addition to grants and
I thought
bond
it's a little bit of a trick question.
Right. So, unless someone's very opposed to issuing new debt or something like that, so that's what we were hoping to get tonight. But if you're all comfortable with these methods, what we'll do is look at the CIP in the context of these funding sources and come back to you with the recommendations that kind of piece them all together.
Thank you. With an emphasis on grants when possible. All right. Oh, Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I don't know if I read this in the brief book or if you talked about it tonight. What's our history in using reserves above 20%?
Generally, every year, we use it above the 20% for major one-time expenses or capital projects.
And is there a way to, this is perhaps for a subsequent meeting or discussion, to show on a graph like how much we're using per year? I don't know if that.
Certainly, because we can show what the adopted PAYGO is and then what the actual PAYGO is on the year. So that actual PAYGO, the variance between the adopted and actual, would be the amount of reserves that we're using.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you need us to weigh in on this one? Because I know that you would leverage some of these very same methods when needed. Or I feel like we're okay on this question.
I think we're okay on the question. I think we really just needed to know if there was anyone who had a strong opposition to debt issuance or had other comments about use of reserves. If we think that the target should be higher, for instance, or something like that. That would be helpful for us to get a sense of.
I did like the idea of looking at what the raters prefer in terms of the 25% to make sure we maintain the AAA bond rating, because that helps us to get better interest rates.
It does. It helps us that we are pretty much consistently above our target. If we were ever in a position where we were right at the target or going below it, that would definitely be a negative signal to our bond rating agencies.
Thank you. So that's just the one caveat that I'll make on this one item. All right. Anything else that you'd like to discuss with us?
No, I think that concludes the discussion.
Dr. Miles.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. So I will say that as much as I was kicking and screaming about this new method of soliciting our replies and responses, it wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. Kind of like a COVID shot. PSA, get your COVID shots and flu shots and RSV shots. But it wasn't that bad, so I'll eat my words. Thank you.
I was going to use an idiom and a phrase, but I won't. But that was fun. Thank you, Dr. Miles. All right. So I know that you'll be sharing some updates on the website as well on get your surveys done, but also the budget hearings will be advertising those so that we can hear from the public. And then I just also want to make sure that we're doing some additional outreach to the community to get feedback as well.
That's correct, and I believe we shared our outreach plan with the mayor and council. I don't believe we received any questions or follow-up from that, but that plan includes various methods of outreach to the community, direct, indirect, posters, flyers, reaching out to all boards and commissions, and various community associations across the city.
I did have one point on that super quickly. I loved all the ideas, and I think being very systematic about our outreach and kind of getting in that rhythm is really important. don't have to answer me right now. Maybe come back with outreach ideas specifically to address the gaps in who has responded so far to the budget survey. It's very distinct. The neighborhoods that have not engaged as much as we would like, and some of the demographic constituencies that have not engaged. I think that would be really helpful, because I think having a broad outreach plan is absolutely crucial, but then having those sort of strategic outreach plans, I think that would be really helpful as well, to try to get more folks engaged in the process.
Certainly. I can share here that a couple of things that we do with regards to targeted outreach. One of those things is working with our Housing and Community Development Department to make sure that we are providing flyers to people who come and receive holiday drive items. So back in November, everyone who came to pick up a pie and a gift card also received a flyer about the budget survey. We hope that that is reaching some of our harder to reach groups in the city, and perhaps even some people who do not have English as a first language. Speaking of that, we are also reaching out to our ESL classes. There are a couple of different ESL classes that are held in the city in community centers, and so we've reached out to the managers of those community centers to help make sure that we can get flyers directly to the people who are taking those classes. What we saw as part of last year's survey was that despite offering the survey in so many languages, people were not using them in other languages. So that let us know that we really aren't reaching the non-English speaking community, and we know that that community does exist. So we are taking those efforts to try to reach them as well.
Thank you. I will just add that when I've done a lot of pitching on this survey, and as I mentioned, I've gone to community events and games and all the things. When I say budget survey, people are like, I don't know finance, not a finance person, but if I say, what do you want the city to fund? Do you like these programs? Then they were more amenable. So I just wanted to share my experience as we're going out, that we need to understand that that word budget sometimes puts people to say, that's not for me, I don't have that expertise. But anyone can fill out the survey. It's about what we want to see. If they like a program, then yes, you definitely need to say it, and so that we can make sure that we know that's what people want to continue. Councilmember Shaw.
Yeah, I think, and this could be something for the future. So as we're implementing the community engagement plan, and we're looking at the metrics, like who we're reaching, one of the things that we could consider are actually like focus groups, providing some incentives for people to fill out the budget survey. And I think this has proven to just get some more responses. I know that they've done that during like Thrive 2050, when they were trying to reach several different communities during the pandemic. It was really helpful to have like some intentional focus groups. So just an idea.
Thank you. Okay. I'm closing that section out, and we're going to go to agenda item 14. Thank you very much to our finance staff. We appreciate you going through that with us. Agenda item 14, mock agenda. We have the mock agenda for December 18th. To our listening public, just also a note that we recently went through the 2024 calendar that will be posted soon, and we'll be able to look out on a few more dates, but we have December 18th coming up, and I believe City Manager will be January 8th is the next one, just for the listening public. Is that correct?
That is correct, January 8th, next meeting, and we anticipate the budget calendar being finalized next week. Mayor and Council have a goal to get us feedback by Friday on that draft calendar.
Thank you very much. With that, are there any comments about the December 18th agenda? And I know that many of us have an item that we want to discuss under old new business that will affect this agenda, but we can take that under old new business. Is there anything else on the 18th that you want to discuss?
I know that we had discussed a certificate of recognition. Just thinking through it, would it be possible to add that to the 18th in that proclamation and recognition section?
Which one are you talking about? The small business?
No, yes,
The Pearl Harbor Day.
yeah, the FRA.
You're doing that this Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Certificate doesn't.
Yeah, certificate does not need to be put on. I've already taken care of it. Did you get a draft of it today?
I did, actually. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
I have
you.
a couple of
All
minor
right.
edits, but.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I just did want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to agenda item 15, old new business. Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to start, essentially I'm going to have a discussion about whether, as a body, we want to direct staff to put together a resolution taking into consideration some of the great work spearheaded by former Councilmember Feinberg, as well as our Jedi person, Mr. Davis, and crafting a resolution to speak to addressing anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in the context of previous resolutions that we've had. That's ultimately what I want to put forward as a motion in just a moment. It's just in the context of both what we're seeing internationally, not just in Israel and the Gaza Strip, not just in Ukraine, Russia, not just in Uganda, not just in the streets here and in Southside Chicago. It's just, the killing of children it's as a pediatrician, it's rough, and just as a human being, father, whatever person, it's hard to see. So, as former Councilmember Feinberg mentioned, proclamations are just words. It has to be backed up with action. I do think that words are meaningful, and it's in that spirit of addressing what we see both locally and around the world that I want to make a motion that we direct staff to work with Mr. Davis in particular, and all the agencies under your purview to have a discussion about drafting a proclamation to address all forms of hate and bias, to include specifically anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. That's the motion.
Comments? Second. Councilmember Valeri. You can discuss it.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that, actually. As our former councilwoman got a bit of a sneak peek, I think that there had been some who were looking at creating or working on a draft that would be more impactful, more action-oriented, and I think working on that is critically important. Even before I got up here, I noted that interfaith organizing takes time, it takes respect, and it takes authenticity to do it correctly. So I would not want to rush forward. Having said that, I think that expanding and having some sort of a interfaith task force is critically important in order to move forward with things like this, because, last time I checked, I'm pretty sure that we don't have any clergy on the dais, so it might be helpful for those discussions. So I am happy, and I would love to work with staff on this as a former interfaith organizer, but that's kind of my perspective on it. I think I appreciate being action-oriented, and I think that there's some internal actions, such as creating this space to then have those discussions in a much more well-rounded, well-researched format.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Grack.
Thank you. First, with regard to Councilmember Valeri, I actually agree with you. And I think it's important to note that this body, actually the previous body, passed on October 9th a motion that directs staff in part to establish, or to look to establish the interfaith task force. I'd like to see if staff can get back to us and give us kind of progress of where that is, because I actually agree fully that I think, given some of the actions recently that I know the previous council dealt with and some of the things we're dealing with now, I think it's an excellent idea, and I'd like to see us push forward with something like that. Dr. Miles, with regard to what you said, I think everything that you're talking about in our state right now, in our city and our county, is important. I mean, Councilmember Feinberg mentioned in September of 2021, the hate has no place here, condemning and denouncing all hate and hate-motivated violent actions in the city of Rockville. I think that did cover, what we're talking about. If there's an initiative to cover more of what's happening recently with regard to anti-Semitism action that's happening in our city, Islamophobic actions that are happening in our city, I think it's something that I can support. I know there have been, there was some discussion in community forum with regard to whether we're going to do any resolution that's larger than this, what's impacting the city. I think that's a mistake. I think our body is here to talk about what is impacting the city of Rockville. And I know there has been anti-Semitic acts. I know there have been Islamophobic acts. I know there's been anti-Arab acts that have happened in our city. And that's definitely something that we need to be vigilant against. And it's something and I think it's relevant to note, as Councilmember Feinberg did, as we've talked about with the Interfaith Task Force, that this body has been at the forefront in previous mayor councils of addressing this. And we have to be vigilant with regard to protecting our citizens and making sure that they know that this body condemns any such hateful actions, regardless of what religion, race, sexual orientation whatsoever. And to the extent that this is the time to do that, it's something that we need to do without getting into any larger global issues that in and of itself could create more of those types of actions in the city.
I will speak briefly. So I know our community has been grappling with a lot, and there have been, whether it's in our schools, places of worship, some of the rallies that have been here, where we're hearing not quite crime, but and sometimes it is crime, but there's a lot more of the hateful, biased speech. And we have to watch it, and we have to make sure that we're taking action to know the kind of city we are. We did do the No Place for Hate resolution in the city. We also did a social justice resolution, and we did a third one that's not yet on the city's website that we need to get there. It's the anti-Semitism resolution. And I know I've spoken to staff about making sure that's updated. I am open to having discussions about how we evolve this, and I know during our retreat we all said that we're interested in the larger JEDI discussion of making sure we're including interfaith. The Interfaith Task Force is part of that. And I know that the city manager is working with staff to get an update for us so that we can look at that. I know that the resolution, No Place for Hate, is broader. I am open to discussing either an update of a resolution or having one that can mention Islamophobia as well as anti-Arab acts that we do not tolerate here in the city, and also re-emphasizing anti-Semitism is not at all acceptable here in the city. Any kind of hateful behavior is not. I know that each of these resolutions have come through when there were acute points in history, and we felt like we needed to stand up and say something. So with that said, that's where I stand on this. I would love to hear from our city manager, given where we are on JEDI, and your recommendations moving forward. I know that we did give a lot in the previous mayor and council that you need some time to work through, but I just wanted to, just for the listening public, to know that there are things that are being evolved.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I believe that the proclamation that's being discussed should be separated from possibly an interfaith task force. There was, as Councilmember Van Crack stated, there was some guidance to consider one previously. And as I proposed in an email, staff would be willing to come back perhaps on January 8th to give you an update, call it discussion instruction. It's talking about an interfaith task force, but we could also give you an update on all the actions where embarked in right now, so you can really set where we are, and then we can figure out whether you want to go after the Interfaith Task Force or not, and give some guidance possibly at the meeting, or just get the briefing, and then we can move on with the bigger JEDI discussion and give you an update as we get that more advanced. But I would recommend, if you want to go with the proclamation, we separate it, and then if you want an update on the task force, that January 8th might be a good time to give you a lot of that background, get everybody on the same page at what was done in the previous mayor and council and where staff is right now on those actions that were stated by our previous mayor and council, to make sure we're level set. And you can hear from Mr. Davis as to his opinions on Interfaith Task Force, et cetera.
Thank you. And we'll get the resolution up on the website, correct, so that people can see what we've done on anti-Semitism. Yes. Thank you. And I just do want to clarify as we continue the discussion, so we will have an update on the Interfaith Task Force as well as the other interfaith activities like the calendar and updating the matrix. There's a range of things that we talked about there. The second is discussion on, there was a draft circulated as a start from Mayor and Council's resolution on Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-Arab acts. So I want to just hear from my colleagues of whether there's interest in moving forward on that, and we can put it on a future agenda. I know that we said we want to try to be done by 10, so I just want to call, as promised, call the time and then see if we can get some quick polling on this. Councilmember Valeri.
Yes, I think this is really important. I appreciate where the city manager is coming from on this, but I think that there's something very powerful in this moment, that this is the resolution and this is the action, because there is an element of healing that needs to occur, right? Probably there's always been healing along the way, but if there's any way to create that healing in the city of Rockville, having the resolution and saying, as part of this, we believe in, it is so important to have this task force. I think it can be done as a future item, but yes, I would like this to come back on the 18th for sure.
I would just like to add, bringing it back on the 18th is fine, but I also want to agree with Councilmember Valeri vociferously about healing. And, if we could also get a report, because part of that October 9th motion that was passed by the mayor and council also talked about an issue of healing and a meeting with the Jewish leaders, and then following that with the interfaith and other religions. So it's one thing to just say something, but the more we can actually follow through with actions, even better to kind of promote healing. So yes, I would support it.
Thank you. So in terms of moving forward on a potential resolution, as you all have discussed, I think we should potentially assign a member of the body to come back and bring that forward. Is there anyone willing to work on that? Dr. Mouse.
So, Madam Mayor, for important clarification, so a motion was made. Are we not dealing with the motion, or should I revise it, or strike? It never got a second, so did it die?
It died.
Okay.
But I think it was reframed.
Okay. So is somebody going to reframe the motion, or should I reframe the motion, or?
You're welcome to.
I'll try it again. So I'll make a motion to direct staff to work with a member of one of our colleagues. I nominate Marissa Valeri to work with staff to draft a proclamation.
Resolution.
It's a resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, a resolution to address, I thought it was anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'll leave it there.
Do I have a second? Second, okay. All those in favor?
I got a point of clarification.
Yeah.
Is a vote in favor of the motion to bring something at the next meeting tantamount to a vote in favor that there be a proclamation?
Resolution.
Resolution.
So you'll have an opportunity to vote on the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just saying it can come forward on an agenda.
Okay.
And that was my understanding of the vote as well.
That's right, that's right. All right, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you all. I hope this doesn't mean we went too long, but I do see Delegate Vogel here with us. Welcome. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, can I get clarification on whether the mayor and council wishes to direct staff to bring that January 8th agenda item?
Yes.
Can we get a vote on that, just like you did on the resolution?
Do
for
we need a
December
vote?
18th?
Do we need? We all
To
want.
add something to the
We
agenda?
are directing staff to do that. Quick poll.
I thought that was the motion.
The motion was
was a
focused on the
resolution for
resolution,
December
but we
18th.
all want to see
Yes.
that
Okay,
happen,
thank
so
you.
we're directing. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have one very quick old new business, and that is around County Council Member Will Jawando's, was it County Board of Health, not resolution, I forgot whatever they call it, around providing free menstrual products in bathrooms around the county. I'm unclear, and I'm looking, hi Linda, I'm looking in your direction. I'm unclear, I know it's a Department of Health measure, so I presume that we fall under that. But I would love to know if there is going to be a fiscal impact. Potentially, I know some of these things might come down the road, but I think it's a phenomenal idea. I'd like to be as supportive of it as possible, and just wondering what, if any, impact it might have on the city. And if it's too early, we can circle back around, but I know that there's a public hearing on December 12th in the county council chambers, and I think that we got sent more information about it late this afternoon, and I can't recall here.
Can I just suggest, I wonder if staff can watch this bill, because I know it's still evolving, so that we can then get an update on where they are, and then if it does go through or not, decide what we want to do here in the city. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's completely fair. It's very early. The email was like just before 2 p.m. just this afternoon, so I know everything's like brand new. I think just watching it would be really helpful right now.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shaw.
Yeah, I'm also very supportive of this bill, and within that process of just getting more information, also to pull the racial equity and social justice impact statement that should go along with any bill in the county, to also share that as well. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just to let you know, if this bill passes, the mayor and council doesn't make a decision. That is mandatory for the city to comply. Staff plans to comply, and the fiscal impact is not substantial enough for the mayor and council need to take action. Staff will make sure it happens. So we will monitor it. We will let you know, but we plan to comply with the county law should it pass.
Thank you. And if it doesn't pass, we can make decisions on what we want to do with our facilities. Thank you. One other thing, Small Business Saturday, we have done that previously, and just want to see if there's support from my colleagues to just have that come back as a proclamation for the 18th. Is everyone okay with that? I'm seeing, we don't need a vote, but if we're directing staff, if that's possible. All right. It's now 10:04. We're just 4 minutes late, sorry. We've been working very hard to end our meetings in the 10 to 10:30 time frame. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.